taking the container that you had your summer or fall annuals in. Once if the frost has come, those are going to die anyways. You can cut off the tops of those and use that same container to transition into winter. So that's what I've done here. This is a pot that I had other things planted in previously. I just cut off the plants and now I'm ready to stick my greens in. If you're starting fresh though, you could use a newer container and just fill that with potting soil or gravel, something that's going to hold our greens in place. So that's step one, is to select our container. The next step then is to actually add in our greens. Now you can either make your container all around so it's even on all sides, or you can make it a little bit more one-sided. So I like to start with my largest greens first, and I'm just going to remove some of that lower foliage so that I have a clean stem to insert into my container. And I'm going to make this one one-sided. So I'm going to start with some of these taller evergreens in the back. This is some blue spruce that I'm going to start out with. And I just harvested these right from the garden, so they're nice and fresh. And I'm putting these in at different angles. So these ones in the back, I'm going to have angled backwards a little bit. And then as I move forward, I'll have some angled forward. So this will give me kind of a nice depth to the container. So I'm starting with some of those larger ones in the back and working my way towards the front. And if you need to, you can cut things smaller if they start to get too large. And then once I get to the front, then I can use some of these smaller pieces to start to kind of angle forward a little bit. Because our goal here is to cover up this whole container so that we don't have any gaps. So I like to start with what I have the most of. So I have a lot of blue spruce, so this will really fill quickly. And it'll add a nice kind of color and texture. So I start by adding in that blue spruce. Now I don't have to completely cover it at this point because I'm going to add other greens in there. Now once I have this first type of greenery in there, then I can switch to another one to start adding some different textures and different colors. So I also have some pine here, which makes for a great cut evergreen. Then I can add in between that blue spruce to add some great texture. Now I'm just making sure that I push the ends of these stems into my soil so that they're going to be nice and secure. And the nice thing about a winter container is that once the soil freezes, things are going to be plastered in place. So they're not going to fall out of this container very easily. It's going to be pretty strong and sturdy. Okay, so I'm adding that pine in just to add a little bit more texture, switch things up, making sure that I have some draping over. Pine is great for that because it's a little bit more arching, so I can use that pine over the edges to kind of cover the edge of my container, which is great. Okay, so I have my spruce and I have my pine, but I want to keep adding so I can add a little bit more interest. And juniper is a great one for that, especially when it has the little berry-like cones on there with a nice light blue color. And again, I'm cleaning the bottom of the stem so that I have a nice insertion point. And I'm going to add in that juniper so that I get the color of those berries. I also have some arborvitae that has a really great look to it, and it also has some pods on it. So I just keep adding those until I feel like it's full enough, until I feel like I have enough kind of depth to it, enough texture, and it looks very interesting. Once you have that container full of evergreens, then you can start adding accessories and branches to kind of make it unique. I like to add height by using different branches. Now there's a lot of great willows, curly willows that you can use. This one's a fresh curly willow, so it's still pretty soft and pliable. Or you can use more of a dried willow as well. So I'm adding that to the back and a little bit towards the front to add some of that extra height. So you could stick with one type, you could stick with multiple. This is one that's been dried, so it's a little bit more of a darker color, just to add a little extra interest. And you can also spray paint. I have some white branches here as well. You can take these same branches and spray paint them white if you want more of that kind of wintry look to it as well. So you can kind of go with whatever color scheme you're working with. So I'm just cutting those to length, a couple shorter to fill out the front a little bit. Okay, so that adds a lot of great visual height to the container. Birch is another one that's a really great branch. It gives that winter feel, as well as red twig dogwood. You'll see that a lot in many containers, especially if you want to bring in that red color. Okay, so once I have my branches in place, then I can start thinking about accessories or adding other things in. And definitely think about dried things. This is a dried eucalyptus pod that has a really cool kind of light blue color to it, so it'll go very nicely with my juniper in there. So it doesn't have to be all fresh things. There's a lot of things that dry really well and hold their color. So I'm just cutting these a little shorter and adding those pods in. Okay, now you can also think about permanent botanicals or silk things. These are some fake berries that you could add in. I've used these for several years. They hold up very well. Or if you want to stay fresh, you could use winterberry when that's in season. So here I have just some pods in there, but I think I want to add a couple more accessories. So a couple of other things I want to add just to give some more depth to this is I want to put some pine cones in there. These are great for putting down inside to add depth, or you can wire them and actually have them sticking a little bit farther out. And you can get out that spray paint again as well and add some color to this too. So if I wanted to bring in a little bit more of that kind of icy blue, I could spray paint these as well if I wanted to. And you can also use other accessories, like these are some branch little orbs that I've had sitting around. And I like the idea of having those as kind of the focal point for my container. So I'm just gonna place those. And again, I would wire these so that they're not going to fall out of my container as well, just to make sure everything is secure. So I think I will add a couple of more shorter branches then coming towards the front to make sure that it all blends well together. And think about the space this is going into. If you have a huge space to put this in, where there's not going to be a lot of people walking around it or anything, you can definitely go bigger with those branches. But if it's maybe next to a front door where people are going to be walking by, then you might want to stay a little bit more vertical. Just depends on your space. Okay. Okay, I will add one more smaller piece coming forward, and then I think I will be done. So here's that final container. So I've got it one-sided, so this I would probably put maybe against the house or the front of the house where I want to display it. And then I have the shorter pieces towards the front so you can see all of that. So here we have our finished containers. As I mentioned before, I made a one-sided, so it's a little taller in the back, shorter in the front. So this would be great against the house. Or you can also create something that's more all around. So instead of putting those branches towards the back, I put those branches in the center and just created kind of radially around those. So this would be great for the front porch, somewhere where you're going to see both sides. In terms of care for these containers, it's going to be very easy. You're just going to stick these outside. The cold temperatures will actually preserve things very well. These will stay green for you from winter all the way up till spring. I usually just leave mine in the container until I'm ready to put my spring annuals in, and then I add new potting soil. The cold temperatures will also freeze the soil, especially once it gets wet. It'll freeze these branches in place, so you don't have to worry about anything falling out. So these will really last you through the winter season.